Hey, it's Neil in Studio B here. I'm going to do a little Pro Tools recording, show you how to route that through the Toft, headphones, and everything you need. So let's get started on that. First thing I'm going to do is get this computer on. So it is down here, and it is on, so I see a green light. That's also, if you can kind of see in there, that's where you're going to plug in your flash drive. So you can see there's a light, so it should be on. Keyboard is located underneath, and you can see the two monitors have come on. So I'm going to go ahead and use the login and ID that we've talked about that to log in here. Up and running, and you can see here it won't let me choose the sample rate. It's kind of grayed out, which makes me suspect that there may be an issue. And what we're going to be using as our I/O is this MOTU 828, and you can see it's off. So someone's turning the gear off. Just leave it on. It's fine. Doesn't need any problem. So I'm going to turn this on. So this means this is probably defaulted to the wrong playback engine. So I'm going to say I've got my demo project. It's going to ask me where I want to save it. I'm going to save it not on the desktop because you don't do that. I've got a documents folder here. I'll make a new folder real quick. Title it Neil. You can see the MOTU stuff is launching in the background. Got my demo project. And then what I'm going to do is go up to Setup, Playback Engine, and you can see it says Dante Virtual Sound Card, and there's the MOTU 828. It says, do you want to select that? Notice a yes is highlighted, so I can hit return and it's going to fire my session back up. Do I want to save a report? No, thank you. Now let's see what my session is. I'm going to go to Setup, Session, and it's set to 2448. That's perfect. So one of the things, though, it didn't do is probably give me the right I/O. So I'm going to go ahead and quit. And I'm going to hit Don't Save because I don't need that. And I'm going to do this because I want to be able to choose the right I/O. And it's going to let me choose WAV files, 24-bit, 48. That's fine, but here's, and you can see, Capital Stereo Studio B. That's going to be, it's going to ask me to prompt location. I've got my demo 2 on my folder in the desktop's documents. So now when I make a new audio track, I'll switch over to the mix window. My inputs, you can see analog 1 through 8. Instrument 1 or 2 are right here on the MOTU 828, but we're going to run through the Toft for the mic pre's, so analog 1 through 8 are important, so I'm going to choose analog 1. So how do I get that? Well, let me show you.
The inputs on the wall, we have 16 inputs. Simply enough, the baby bottle's plugged into input 1, and the headphones are plugged into A. You could put the headphones in any one of those inputs. So you can see I've got Pro Tools hanging out here, already set up. So let's go ahead and get signal flow from that microphone. It's coming into input 1. So because it's a baby bottle condenser mic, we want to make sure we have phantom power turned on, and then some preamp. You do have to turn up the input fader, and in this case, the long throw faders are acting as our input fader. We then assign this channel to any one of the 8 buses on the Toft console. These 8 buses feed the 8 bus output faders, which then leave the console into the 8 analog inputs of this 828 audio interface. So what we would do on channel 1 here is choose the 1-2 switch and then pan all the way to the left, so we're just sending it to bus 1. We go to the bus 1 output fader. That then sends the audio out of the console into analog 1 of that 828 interface. We then go into Pro Tools. You can see in Pro Tools I have my first track is my stereo background track, and then I have multiple vocal tracks ready to go. So I would go to this first vocal track and assign the input. When you go to the input, you're going to see interface, and you're going to have a ton of options. You want to choose analog 1. You do not want to choose the first 2 options, mic instrument 1 or mic instrument 2. Those 2 options are the preamps hanging out on the front of the MOTU interface. So instead, we just want to choose this analog 1. We arm the track, and we should see a little bit of level. Yeah, no one's out there talking, but we have a little bit of level in Pro Tools. Now, if we want to hear Pro Tools, we go to the top right-hand corner of the Toft console. You're going to find the switching bank. And the bottom option is labeled Pro Tools, 2-track 2 return. We need to make sure that that is selected. And then you have your monitor level hanging out right here. That's going to be your volume of any track coming out of Pro Tools. Notice that down here in Studio B, all of my outputs are set to main out 1 and 2, which is an option down there in that list there. There we are. Now, if you wanted to send to the headphones, we're going to go to that vocal track and go to the Send section. Send A, we'll choose Output, Analog, 7 and 8. When I choose that option, what that's saying is that this 828, the analog 7 and 8, is connected to this PreSonus headphone amp hanging out over here. So if I go to analog 7 and 8, it'll call up a fader. I can choose pre to make it pre-monitor fader and then adjust the volume. That's going to be the volume of just that track. So you would want to assign every single one of these tracks to analog 7 and 8 so you can feed them to this headphone amp. The last thing on the headphone amp that you want to do is take a look at this note here. It says Mix A Toft, Mix B Pro Tools. You'll recall we have this mix knob, A and B. We want to make sure that when we're using Pro Tools and using that output analog 7 and 8 that we have these over on the Mix B side. So on every channel, I've already set Mix B to be the mix for Pro Tools. Then you can see here, channel 1, that would be the A input out in the studio. 2 is B, C, and D. You just verify that your master volumes are up, that your individual volumes are up, and they will be able to hear headphones. So,
there's also a talkback mic here. So if you hit the talk button, you'll go to the talk. There'll be talkback level in the headphones. So as long as this is on, that's how you can test that it's on. You can test this if you want to also check your mix. You can also send that and listen in the headphones that way. So I can choose phones 7 and 8. Make sure I put them pre-fader, and I'll bring this up. And now my client can hear the headphones, and I can adjust the microphone. So again, running through any of the channels that you want. You have up to 8 at one time because you have 8 different buses, so you could record up to 8 different tracks on Pro Tools and Studio B at one time. And we're running, make sure you select the MOTU and make sure that's on. There's also down here, just remind you, there's a place for your flash drive to save your session. Do not save on the desktop.